Hey, today we're going to be talking about music, specifically metal. Um, in the background here is one of those incredibly convoluted charts of metal genres. Um, I'm going to try like hell not to go complete, old man, get off my lawn, old school metalhead, but I'm gonna go off a little bit here. Uh, I heard the other day about uh, uh, stoner metal. Let's add that with Viking metal, Christian metal, folk metal, Celtic groove, new metal, power metal. Okay, guys. There's just metal. Okay. Um, for whatever reason, over the years, I don't think I've actually called it heavy metal since I was about 14. All right. Um, that always seemed a bit cheesy. Heavy Metal is a magazine, a really badass magazine, and a pretty good movie. The second one wasn't so good. But anyway, it's just metal, guys. Either it's good or it's bad. It's good metal and bad metal. Um, First, some credentials. Uh, Graduated in '85. Our very unofficial school class motto was dead drunk, stoned or alive. We are the class of '85. Um, I was lucky enough to find a good group of guys, couple good friends, and this was right at the peak, or right at the beginning of a whole wave of. Okay, we were catching the tail end of the new wave of British heavy metal. Um, but in, I believe it was '87, is when Master of Puppets came out, Metallica, Peace Sells by Megadeth, Spreading the Disease by Anthrax, and South of Heaven? Forgive me, Carrie. I think South of Heaven came out in '87 too. Anyway, a slew of incredibly good metal albums came out in the same within about 14 months of each other. And okay, we'll talk some of my metal credentials here. My very first rock concert that I went to with me and my friends. I don't include B.J. Thomas at Six Flags. I don't include John Denver with Mom and my little brother. First rock concert I went to was Ozzy Osbourne, Diary of a Madman, Randy Rhoads' last gig he did in Texas, because he died in that awful plane crash 2 to 3 weeks later. Okay? Randy was amazing. In fact, the show, at one time I did have that ticket stub. At one time I had all my ticket stubs. Not anymore. Uh, Last Starfight, I think it was called the very opening band was the Last Starfighters, and then UFO opened for Ozzy. Yes, that UFO. Diary of a Madman tour, and it was incredible. That was my first real metal show, I guess. So that sets the stage. That was age 14 or 15. Um, and back in the day, I had it was just kind of my rule. Was the rule when it came to good metal bands, was the rule of M, as in Motorhead, Metallica, Megadeth, of course, Maiden, Love Slayer, Exodus. I could go on and list a bunch of other bands that we were really into. Overkill. Thank you, Robbie, for introducing us to Overkill. Um, but it was just good metal. It wasn't hair. It wasn't glam. I don't even want to use the term glam rock. It wasn't the hair bands. It wasn't Poison, Faster Pussycat. Even Guns N' Roses was too glam for us. I do remember hearing Cinderella on the radio and thinking, okay, that's not a bad song because the vocalist sounds a lot like Steve Tyler. I like some old school rock too. And then I caught their video on MTV, and no. If you're a guy, look like a guy, especially back in the 80s. But the whole glam thing, the whole hair band thing, never hated it. They were posers, and they sucked, and they still suck. I was lucky enough to get to hang out, and I'm not going to lie and say that that the guys of Rigor Mortis, where we at? Those guys. We weren't best of friends or anything like that, and we weren't joined at the hip, or we didn't get, I got to hang out with them a few times. I saw them live. They opened up for Megadeth on their Peace Cells tour, which was amazing. Longhorn Ballroom, I believe. Yeah, Longhorn Ballroom, if I believe they had, it was kind of at the beginning of the whole mosh scene where I lived. And they had a couple huge cement pillars in the middle of the room that hurt if you ran into them. But I got a chance to catch Rigor Mortis at its early stages, and they were amazing. It was a hell of a scene. And then there was Pantera. Now, keep in mind, back then, Pantera was a hair band. I believe it was even before they got a hold of Phil Anselmo. The guys, Dimebag and his brother, I think were a couple years older than me. Because I think they had already graduated high school. Anyway, Pantera sucked, and Rigor Mortis was the shit for local bands. Local metal bands, I should say. And I remember it was a keg party, and I believe it was my baby brother. It was right after Cowboys from Hell came out. And my baby brother had put, I think he did, put Cowboys from Hell in the cassette deck at a house party I was at. And I was just walking through the house, going to go grab a beer or something like that, and I heard some pretty good metal. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. Who is this? And then somebody said Pantera, and I almost punched him in the face. Because up to that point, they had hair up to here and were wearing makeup. Cowboys from Hell was pretty fucking good. And I had to admit, after a while, that it's good to see that the guys from Pantera came around to doing some real music instead of some poser music. And we're going to talk about metal. Like I said, forget about doom metal, black metal. All right, here's the acceptable adjectives for metal music. Okay, black metal, speed metal, thrash. I'll give you maybe death metal if you're feeling especially evil. Those are acceptable terms for guitar-based, high octane, highly aggressive rock and roll. Maybe with falsetto vocals. Doesn't have to. Look at Paul Di'Anno and Phil Anselmo, and there's a bunch of metal singers that didn't have to sing like Rob Halford, which is good. I love Rob. The loudest concert I ever went to was Screaming for Vengeance, and I was lower balcony, and my ears still rang for 3 days after catching Priest. But give it up with the Christian metal. There's a contradiction in terms there, guys. Metal is an attitude. It is not a hairstyle. It's an aggressive guitar-based music that came from the underground, so to speak, the real good stuff. Lethal Aggression. Don't get me started with the really obscure bands. And I'm happy to say that there's a few new ones out now that I'm starting to get into. I'm not going to name names yet because I've got to do some homework still. What else? What else? Okay. Iron Maiden. Guys of Iron Maiden, y'all broke my freaking heart. Went to go see them 4 or 5 times back in the day because I was lucky enough to catch them at their pinnacle. I didn't get to see them for... they really came on my radar with Number of the Beast, but I did catch them with Power Slave, and a couple shows after that. I think Somewhere in Time was probably the last time I saw them. I don't know if those guys, they lost their edge. I know they got older. We all do. But okay. All right. Bruce Dickinson, by the way, I actually prefer Paul Di'Anno's vocals. The older I get, the older I want to go with Iron Maiden. Di'Anno, Running Free, anything off of anything, the first 2 or 3 albums they did with Di'Anno, I love to death. It's got a raw sound to it, and it's not overly complicated. And not that there's anything bad about complicated music. I love Rush and Zappa, but when we're talking about metal, keep it the simple, faster, the better. Bruce Dickinson was quoted as saying, now this is back in the day, pre-internet. That's how old I am. So when you wanted tidbits about your the bands that you really liked, it was, Hit Parader magazine, MTV up to a point. Anyway, you couldn't just Google discographies and things like that. Anyway, there was an interview me and the Buds managed to catch, and I think it was when Maiden got to the other side of the Iron Curtain. They were the first big band to play in Russia behind the Iron Curtain. And because he was talking to a guy that had some Eastern European guy, obviously, because this guy's his fan's accent. And the guy said, "Damn it, I love metal. I want to learn to play metal on my synthesizer." And Bruce, who looked half lit, imagine that, said, "Oh, no, you can't play metal on a synthesizer." Guys, 10 years later, that's exactly what y'all fucking did. Synthesized guitars, and y'all just, and you brought in an extra guitarist. Okay, y'all started falling apart when y'all had to kick out Clive. When y'all lost technically your second drummer, when Clive left and you brought in Nico, who was okay. That's when y'all start really losing your edge. I remember getting really excited. I kind of liked Somewhere in Time. It was Power Slave, Somewhere in Time, and then Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I scratched my head. I tried so fucking hard to like that album, even back then, and I just couldn't get over how soft it sounded. Like somebody had given them a bunch of Xanax or some shit. I don't know. I didn't like it. There's one good song off of Fear of the Dark, Mother Russia. After that, I listened to 1 or 2 tracks of their other crap, and they still go to concerts. I refuse to pay good money to go see them now, though. Y'all broke my heart. Y'all had your time in the time in the sun, yeah, but the sun set on them shortly after Somewhere in Time. Just keep it simple with the names, guys. There's no need to overanalyze and break down into sub-genres. I know there's probably some academics out there that just wanted to get published and write something about something. And anyway, don't overthink it. Metal isn't for thinking. It's for reacting and doing. All right, so there.